Lisa Fields was one of the presenters, and she had done a lot of study on the whole water issue around here. And when I asked her about this, she said, well, I could get a permit.
Okay.
So I also searched online, and I found a copy of a memo from the top water guy somewhere, urging people to do what I'm doing. And it didn't say anything about whether or not you were west of the Continental Divide. So that's my water collection confession.
So Amy, to wrap up this discussion on water and water storage, yes, you can, generally speaking, and everybody does. So,
Okay.
all right, well, let's get going here. We've had a lot of people email us that they weren't able to make it. And so that's fine, they're optional, but we will record.
I did start recording. I want everybody to know that I started recording after Betsy made her
Thank you.
admission.
Thank you.
That's right. So we'll have it up for you when we have it up for you, okay? Okay, a few announcements before we get going. I think Wendy and I have the final version of Carter's Native Plants for Lawn and Garden of Southwest New Mexico. That's something that, as you remember, maybe last week, was something we found from 1994, put out by the Gila Native Plant Society. I went in and changed all the nomenclature, all the plant families and the scientific names, and we added updated resources and vendors and growers of native plants. So that should be about as good as it's going to get. It looks pretty good, and it concentrates on trees, shrubs, and woody vines. So it's really another nice complement to our beginner's guide, which is herbaceous perennials of the Gila area. So it's under extras, and you'll see it. It's a wonderful little guide that Dr. Jack Carter put together back in 1994. We have Elroy's Module 3 now open. And so under modules on the Canvas site, you'll go to Module 3, how to plant, prune, and care for native plants. And there is a discussion area set up for that Wendy has done for us. So check that out and do use those discussions. Get to the discussion area, and we have some specific discussions. And, and if you put it somewhere else or it doesn't necessarily belong, it's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll find it. And start sharing some photographs and start sharing some ideas of what you're doing and what you hope to do. Maybe get some before and talk to us about what you'd like it to look like after. We're going to send you another Zoom invitation on Friday, on the 19th, this coming Friday. That is generally when the Gila Native Plant Society does its evening programs. And this time it's called Plant Root plus Fungal Interactions equal mycorrhizae. Now you might say, oh my God, that just sounds so wonderful. Maybe I'll watch that before I go to bed. However, almost you say 90 or more % of plants worldwide have these very close associations. They're called symbiotic relationships. Almost every plant in the world has a relationship with fungi or a group of fungi that help get nutrients, help get moisture, etc. And why this is important to us is that if you have let's say that on your friend's property, there's a manzanita and you wanted to transplant it. Well, manzanita really needs its mycorrhizae. And if you just take it out and you plant it and those mycorrhizae aren't in the soil you put it in, it will die. These are very, very important specific interactions. So it does make a difference for you as a native plant gardener to be thinking about that. Back in the Midwest, people would dig up an orchid, well, it would just die. Orchids have very close specific associations with these mycorrhizae. They're fungal hyphae, little thread-like that are vital for its survival. Okay, so we're going to send you a link for that Friday program. It's at 7 o'clock. So feel free to join in. It's not mandatory for your grade, which you're not getting one anyway. So, but anyway, please feel free. And that should be good. And I have not heard Keller Supercrop, our speaker, speak, but Elroy and others can tell you that he's excellent educator. And all of our past programs, just since last May, let's say, are also on our website, gnps.org, HeLaNPS.org, HeLaNPS.org. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about lichens, if you want to learn more about ferns, if you want to learn more about the cacti of the area, et cetera, those programs, which generally run an hour or so, are on. You can link from the website. Okay, so take advantage of that. You want to screen share?
Oh, sure. We're going to share our screen here. Okay.
So are you seeing the vascular plants of the Gila Wilderness?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. I just call this Gila Flora. So when I say, well, if you go on to Gila Flora, this is what you'll get. Dr. Russ Kleinman has put this together some years ago, and it's just updated with the new scientific names and families. And this is an absolutely vital website for you. It comes out of our university here, Western New Mexico, and it's wonderful. So I just want to do, I have a little video, some of you may have watched it already, it's called Gila Flora Explored, and then I have Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center Explored, and then USDA Plants Explored. But anyway, this is the what I like to talk about, or what I do talk about in that little video, but I just wanted to show you a few things here because it's such a wonderful, wonderful site. Now there are it says about 1,500 species of native plants in our area, and they're not all on here, but he's got about 1,100 of them on this site. And let me show you some things for you, and you start playing with it on your own. So, you may be familiar with monocots and the eudicots and lycophytes and ferns and acrogymnum. You may have no clue what that means. Doesn't matter. Those are just groups, major groups of plants. But for our purposes, maybe for many of you that you're not professional botanists, etc. Maybe you've got a plant that you've got the common name for. You can go to common names, and that will give you a list of all the common names of all the plants on Gila Flora. Now, do realize that common names are tricky because some plants have 8 or 10 common names, and Russ only gives you one. So that can be challenging. But the scientific names, every plant has only one scientific name. So if you're thinking about, one of the maples, and that would be Acer glabrum, let's say. So you can go there and take a look at Acer glabrum, and you can see it's the Rocky Mountain maple, and he's got photographs, and he talks about the flowers and the fruits, etc.
He has status, and in this case, it's native. So there are some plants on here that are not native, but it will tell you that at status.
And every plant on here will have, when you get to the specific plant, this is Acer glabrum. It also has the name of the family. So if you start to get good at families, then you can use the site to look up things. You say, well, I know what a eudicot is, and I know what, let's go to a real common one, the Fabaceae, the bean family. So you can go to the bean family and look at just all of the species that we have here in the bean family. And there are a whole bunch of them. Okay, but all plants that are native to the Gila region. Okay, so anyway, many different ways to search this site. And so anyway, you can take a look at that. I seriously am on this site every single day, at least for 5 or 10 minutes, looking something up or, okay, my time is up. So, so our group, about 13 folks here, what do you want to talk about today? Questions?
Anybody?
I have
Yes.
just have a general question. I've been watching the videos on the Gila Native Plants YouTube channel, which is terrific. I mean, I've also been doing the coursework online, but the YouTube channel is really helpful. Do y'all intend to have that channel? Is that a long-lived channel? Will that be a resource in years to come for the videos we're watching now as part of this course?
Yes, we will. We won't put, well, will we? I don't know if we'll put all of our Zoom class meetings there.
No, but I'm sure that channel will be up and accessible for years to come, as far as the plants and the maintenance. I mean, that's nice information for people to have, I think. So yeah, we'll
Yes.
keep that up.
Really terrific, really good.
And because we're not able to do our spring and summer, fall native plant walks, we did a few virtually, and they'll be on there as well. I think you may have seen some of those where we will go to an area like, I think there are 2 on Meadow Creek, and it's just get an idea of the plants that are blooming at a particular time. And so, yeah, and we'll add to it, definitely. Okay, other questions? Any questions on, Mary, you look like you've got something to say.
I have a question about some of the common names and so like yuccas and agaves. So you see out and about, the tree like yucca, which I assume is the soap tree yucca. And then you see a yucca that it has a lot of fibrous kind of regularly off the edge. And is that the baccata one?
Yes.
And then you have, and the palmer and the Parry agave, those look alike to me. I guess I would need to like have somebody show me 2 next to each other and say, this is why this is this, and that's why that's that. So if you had any.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it's much easier to tell them apart if you've seen them next to each other.
And we have them, they're next to each other in the garden.
Are they labeled?
Labeled.
Yes, they're labeled. Yes, they're labeled.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for
Garden.
those of you that don't know, Silver Creek Botanical Garden.
Yeah.
Silver
When
City.
you walk into the garden at the main entrance there, where our logo is on the sign there, you walk in and just a few feet, you'll see agaves to your left. About 15, 20 feet from the entrance there, you'll see agaves to your left. And there's both palmers and berries right there.
Okay, and they're labeled. Okay, I'll take a closer look. I just didn't see the labels, I guess.
So Mary, in addition, when you are in the extras and you look at that scientific name video, you'll see that these plants have a genus, which is the first part of this 2-part name, and agave for the plants you're talking about. That's the genus. That's the the scientific name of what we call the genus, just like I am a member, as all of you are, of Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus, and sapiens is usually something that modifies it. It's called the specific epithet or the epithet. So you're looking at agave perii, which is Perry's agave, actually obviously named after a person named Perry. And then Palmer's is agave palmeri, named after a person whose name was Palmer. And but the the agave perii is the most common in our area right here. And then I think you go a little farther south and you'll start to see more of the Palmers, but they certainly grow. Betsy has both species. Because of Betsy, we have both species growing at our place here in Silver City. And so if you find someone nice like Betsy that will let you take some of the ones that she no longer wants, you can transplant them, and the agaves are easy to transplant, as are the cacti are easy to propagate.
That
And
brings me to another question. I collected some seeds from the soap tree yucca. And can I just put those in the ground and plant them and keep them sort of watered, or do I need to, I'm lazy, but do I need to put them in potting soil and grow them that way and then transplant them?
Was that the yucca elida, the soap tree?
Soap
yucca?
tree, yeah.
Yeah.
Elroy?
They'll usually come up on their own if you plant them. You don't need them. I think that you can put them just under the surface and they will come up. They won't look anything like the adult, so you might miss them as an agave when they first, or yucca when they first come up, because that first year or two they look kind of grassy and you wouldn't probably recognize them. But they're fairly, they come up. I'm digging them up because they're out of place. You know, they come up on their own if you don't cut the seed heads off before they go to seed. So.
Oh, okay.
well, mine are much better behaved. They come up along the driveway.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
We have a friend who had some yucca baccata. That's the banana yucca, the one that Mary was talking about. It's smaller and beautiful fibers coming out. And ethnobotanically, you can look back and look that up and see what they were used for by the folks that lived here, 1,000 years ago. But we have a friend who wanted some removed, and so we dug them up. And we usually wait for a time when it's been wet after a rain or snow, and after the snow is melted, and then dig them. And the root system wasn't the ones that we dug up and transplanted. It wasn't enormous. And one of the things with the yucca elida, however, the soap tree yucca, that you see a mature one, that taproot might go down 20 or 30 feet. And we were trying from a friend's house just a couple weeks ago, trying to dig up a yucca elida, the soap tree, that was probably 1.5 feet, maybe not even 2 feet. We couldn't. We just covered it back because that taproot was so far down already. We couldn't budge it. And if you don't, you'll kill it if you don't watch it. So if you can find a grower or a native plant vendor that has them, that's probably the safest way, unless you want to grow your own.
Yeah,
from
and then
seed.
just make sure that you plant it where you want it.
Okay.
But the agaves are easy to transplant.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't have much of a root system that
Okay.
you can take those with practically no roots at all and they'll take off.
Mhm.
Are they fast growing or slow growing or
Um,
medium growing?
Probably somewhere in between fast and slow.
Okay.
they grow quite rapidly. They live, anywhere from probably 12 to 20 years before they bloom and then they die. But you'll get pups if you plant them. More than likely, there'll be a lot of little ones coming up, and so once you have them, you'll always have them, I'm sure. But, and there's plenty of people around here that have these that you can talk to someone and get little pups from them, because a lot of people are just, if they let them go for a few years, they just kind of take over areas. So
And, they are just absolutely perfectly adapted to our climate, adapted to our soil. They can go probably 5 years without moisture. I mean, that's why they grow here.
Yeah.
And so they're very easy ones to start with. And Betsy has a beautiful berm, and you'll see that in those videos in front of her house, but it's bermed up because they like it high and dry. So it's kind of like a raised bed, if you will. They're always drier. And it's a beautiful landscaping technique, bermed up with soil and, nice draining soil, sandy soil, and then rocks. And she has other things planted in there as well.
If I can just say that you'll see Betsy's clump in her yard much more when we open up module 4, which is the landscape tour. And she really has a very beautiful yard, beautifully done yard.
Oh, thank you.
And she doesn't water.
I do water occasionally, but a lot of stuff I have never watered.
You've never watered your agave, I bet you.
No, never. And speaking of how fast it grows and putting it where you want it, a few years ago, Alroy and another friend came to my house and dug up a Palmer agave and put it in the botanical garden. It's over on the right in one of those upended culvert things. That thing is huge now.
Yeah.
And it only took about 6 years to go from 4 inches high to, Elroy, it
was almost too big to move.
Yeah.
Four of us working on that, and it was a toughie, but we got it up there.
Any wounds?
Oh, yes.
So Amy, when you decide to move to Silver City, you're going to find a lot of things that my neighbor's little girl calls pokies. And the agaves and the yuccas are definitely pokies.
And we're actually growing a couple of agaves in a raised bed that's got rock facing along the bed. So I'm looking forward to growing more of them. They're beautiful plants.
Mhm. Amy's in North Carolina now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Related question for somebody like me who will be new to the climate, new to the area. Is there a list of or resource for native plants to the Silver City area that are relatively easy for people who are new to working with the soils, with the climate, that are pretty easy to get established and have some successes with, either from nursery stock or from seed?
In my experience, I could name 3. One of them is blue flax, Linum lewisi or Lewis flax. I've had a lot of luck with that at my house. I started with 3 plants. I let them go to seed. Every year I have about 20 that I can give away or move. So, and after the first season, I never watered them. And the volunteers, the little ones that pop up, I've never watered those. Another one is blanket flower, Gaillardia. The same thing. I started with a few plants, watered those for the first year, and they have spread. So they're a meadow now. They're in a meadow. And a third one I've had good luck with is Blackfoot daisy. Melampodium leucanthum, I think. And that's the same story. I started with a few, watered them the first year, and they have spread like crazy. Now, and I never amended the soil, and I haven't watered the volunteers. I just don't water at all. Now, in some places, I know at the botanical garden, we're having some trouble getting the Lewis flax going, but that is on a steep, a bed on the side slope of a bed that's pretty steep. So it's hard to get enough water in there the first year or so to keep them happy. But I'm going to work on it again this year.
And I would say that 2 of the 3 plants that Betsy just mentioned are in the beginner's guide that we sent out as part of the perks for taking this course. So, and that beginner's guide was designed to be plants that anyone could move into the area and be successful with. They were the easiest things to start with, but they're only flowering perennials. So if you're looking for other things, I think that Carter's native plants for lawns and gardens that Don keeps on talking about that we added to the course, I think that was Carter's early attempt at giving easy to grow suggestions for lawns and gardens. So that's another source for non-perennials.
Perfect, thank you.
Stacy, did you have a comment? Unmute yourself. Stacy, unmute.
You're still muted.
Yeah.
Move your, there you go.
Yeah, I wanted to find out people's ideas about growing plants that the deer love to come and eat, because we love the deer. And I want to encourage that unless it's a real problem for other people.
It's a problem for everyone. It'll be a problem for you too.
Right, right.
They love to eat the oak and mountain mahogany on my property. And also the 3-leaf sumac, which is yeah, those are natives and we didn't plant them, but they're on our property, and that's some of the three of the shrubs or trees that they love to eat.
They like to take the flower stalks off of the yuccas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Consensus is don't
Deer is on
plant things
you
for the
really
deer.
first.
What was that, Stacy?
I said the consensus is don't plant things for the deer.
Well, that's going to be hard to do because a lot of times deer, they'll just take a bite out of it, I think, just to make you mad. And they, and then move on, but they've taken the leader off and it's like, oh boy. So what are you folks doing about deer? Those of you that have established gardens and have been around for a while, what are you doing about dealing with deer?
Well, I live 6 miles out of town. I do not have the luxury of fencing. We have too much property. And the deer come around all the time. Also bunny rabbits. So the mountain mahogany, once it's established and big enough, the deer are not bothering my mountain mahogany, nor are they bothering my 3-leaf sumac. They're all over the property. We have a total of 30 acres. So I've got a lot of all of that stuff, but they do love the new leaves on mountain mahogany, because we had a lot of thinning done on our property. We had about 1/3 of our trees taken out because we just had too much. And when the cutters cut down the mountain mahogany right down to the ground, then the next year all these nice little branches would start up, and the deer love that. The perennials that I have that seem to be most deer proof are the Damianita and the turpentine bush, because they both have distinct smell and odor to them, and the deer seem not to like them.
But then you think you've got it whipped, and then all of a sudden some particular deer comes along and doesn't know that that's not palatable until they really
that happens to
palate than the rest. But
yeah, that happens to me too. And then the population seems to run in cycles.
Yeah.
This last summer, I had practically no eating done by rabbits, whereas in previous years they were all over. the place, but something happened to the rabbit population
Oh,
last
yeah,
year.
the rabbits have a disease that has killed off all the jackrabbits to speak. There's hardly any jackrabbits left anywhere around here.
Except in my yard. You know,
Okay.
Stacy, we have a layered approach to the deer. We have individual cages around plants. We have a
Uh-huh.
around our entire property. And then we have internal fencing and houses that are arranged in such a way that we can make little pockets here and there. And even with individual plant fencing, internal fencing, and external fencing, we still have deer damage. Not
Hmm.
not just pretty deer, but deer damage. It's an ongoing battle. Now Don and Wendy have made I think a deer-proof fence, right? Is it working?
As far as we know, it is still working. We see no deer damage.
It's a good thing if you have a yard that you can afford to fence.
Yeah, and the deal with our place is it's just about a half an acre here in Silver City. But two sides of our property had been walled, beautiful stone wall, back in the 70s by our neighbor Ruben Grijalva. And so there that was two sides, so we didn't have to fence. And then we bought it's 20-foot long panel, 8-foot tall, and it's a remesh that they would use if you were having a driveway put in, and they put that remesh down in there, and then they pour the concrete over it and help strengthen the concrete. And it's rusted, so it's quite pleasing to us. And you can barely see. I mean, you can barely see it. And so we've done the second two sides of our property, and we don't have a problem, and we did it ourselves. So if you hired Garcia Fence Company to come and do a quarter an acre, it would cost you several $1,000s, thousands of dollars. However, we did ours for just a fraction of that, but we did it ourselves.
Well, another technique, if you've got an area, I have a little courtyard, and then I live on rock, so there isn't much that grows there. But anyway, the deer would hop over to 3-foot wall or 4-foot wall I've got, but I laid the fence down on the ground.
On the outside.
On the outside, and they don't like to get their feet tangled up in the wire.
Right.
So they stand back about 4 feet that way. So that works quite well too.
Yeah.
In some cases. I mean, it doesn't work everywhere, but it would work in many places, I think.
Yeah, we use that on our slope. It works really well on a slope because they can't get close enough to jump over the low fence that's at the top of the slope. So we just roll the mesh down the slope.
Yeah. And if you keep it off the ground by, 3 inches, it works really well.
So I've got to say that Stacy did ask about attracting the deers, and
Yeah.
just how to keep them away.
Yeah, you should not have trouble attracting deer.
No.
Well, we have plenty. I just, I think they're gorgeous. I love them. I'm not as much of a gardener as many of you are, so.
Right. As do we,
And the deer need a place, so if you want to attract them to your yard.
Well,
Plant anything.
and what
Yeah, Stacy, I wish I could give them your address.
Well, through the last few years, they've removed at least a couple of hundred out of the city of Silver City because they're such a nuisance. And
Yeah.
a lot of car accidents too because of it, or traffic accidents.
Well, they certainly leave a lot of poop in the yard.
There's an awful lot around. We had people come over to our house the other day, kind of late in the day, and they said they saw 2 herds of about 30 deer each coming up to our area. So they really hit the jackpot. I haven't seen quite that many.
Yeah.
That's good.
But if a herd of 30 comes through your yard, you can forget about anything you had growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elroy, over at the garden, you have tried a number of commercial sprays. They are non-toxic to wildlife. The deer just don't like the taste of it. Do you have any suggestions or tried and true?
Okay,
experience?
my many years of experience with deer, one works well for quite a while, maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 years sometimes. And then all of a sudden the deer decide they're accustomed to it and they're going to feed regardless. But just about any of the products that you can buy that have eggs in them, the deer just despise the eggs. And rotten eggs in there just doesn't taste good, apparently. And so they work quite well. And this past year, I've been buying some for the garden at Ace on a regular basis. They didn't have any this year. I don't know why. But look, well, different garden centers, you'll find you just spray it on. And if, like around here, a lot of the time you can go for 6 weeks without having to spray again because it doesn't rain that much. But yeah, during the rainy season, you have to be more aware of that and spray more often. But the deer seem to learn that, oh, well, that doesn't taste good, so they don't go back to it right away unless there's some new deer moving into the area. But yeah, any product that's got egg in it, you have to read the label. But those will help you out quite a bit.
Thank you.
So you can see that the question you asked about deer, we all have something to say about that because they're on our minds.
Right.
Other questions, anything that you've been thinking about or want to ask or discuss? Mary?
Betsy was talking about a meadow, and I have an area that's I have some trees that were established that came with the property, but then underneath it is just like that. I don't know what kind of grass it is. It kind of forms like a circle, little arcs and stuff, and then it's bare. And so I was wanting to plant like a few of things like Gaillardia or just a few things, and I wondered if it would spread. Because if I didn't or would I have to cultivate the soil or create a meadow, or because without watering it and stuff. So I just wasn't sure how to approach that, or whether I should even introduce some of the grasses that were mentioned in this module, if that would look good. Or
Betsy, why don't you start off?
Well, in my meadow, I'll call it my meadow, my side yard, I didn't have trees with any shade, so it was in the bright sun, and we had put gravel down, and the seeds got caught in the gravel. That seemed to be, even though I didn't amend the soil, the seeds just loved sinking down into the gravel and they weren't being blown away. I'm wondering how much light you have under your trees. That would make a difference.
actually, I think it kind of bakes in the sun, and like I have,
okay.
The trees are not that big. I have an Arizona sycamore that's not doing that well. Which is kind of a crazy place for an Arizona sycamore, I think. And then I'm not sure what the other two are. I think one's a ash and the other one might be a Chinese pistache. And that's it. And otherwise, so it'd be a lot of sun.
Well, I can't give too much. I don't know that much. I think I just benefited from pure luck.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think,
And I just keep trying things too.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had success creating a meadow on the north end of our house, but over on the east side, it turned out just lovely without my having to do anything. So maybe some other people have some better ideas. I'm just the lucky recipient of.
I've had a lot of luck with gravel
Okay,
in
that's
the front yard, and it's very sunny. And I started off with seeds, wildflower seeds that were good for the area, and they just continue to reseed in the gravel. So and we also have a gravel driveway, and I get lots of little seedlings coming up in the gravel driveway. So I've kind of had a lot of good experience without doing anything, just putting gravel down and a few seeds, and it takes off from there.
How thick do you put down the gravel?
Oh, maybe an inch, not real deep.
Oh, okay. Huh.
One of the things that we talked about last week is not to fight your soil too much. These native grasses are adapted to growing in things that you wouldn't think anything could grow in. And, you know, you go out into the quote unquote desert around Silver City out in the Gila, and it's full of native grasses. Unfortunately, too many exotic grasses as well. Yeah. But the grass, Mary, that you're talking about that's in a ring, that's called a ring muley. It's a native. It's Muhlenbergia torii. You start practicing with your Gila flora tonight. Look up ring muley in the common names, and you'll learn about it. It's a beautiful little grass, but that's the way it grows. It's happy, it's healthy. It's the ring muley, it grows that way.
Okay.
So there, you've got at least one native grass in your yard.
Cool.
And the deer will not touch it.
Okay.
If you had cattle in your yard, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
The rabbits might, right?
They might. But
Feed the rabbits.
Yeah, we're planting more and more of the native grasses, and they're just happy and they're beautiful. And some of the bunch grasses like deer grass and bullgrass, they're beautiful in the summer, beautiful in the fall. I mean, you go to the garden, look at the little blue stem. The little blue stem is his cinnamon golden color, and it's finally going to flower in the garden. It's just a beautiful grass, and you just don't need to do too much with them.
So it doesn't need extra water.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, most of the things that we dig up or from a friend's yard or we buy, it just takes a little while to establish. They need to get their roots. But after that first period of time, depending on what it is, if it's a tree, a little longer, but no. And that's the thing with using these native grasses in this climate, where there's just isn't a lot of water. And that's why they grow here. That's what they like.
And also the flowering perennials that are in that booklet that we sent out, which most of them are in Betsy's meadow. And if you are just driving the highway 180 out somewhere, you'll see blanket flower is volunteering all over the place, and the Fender's sundrops. There's lots of plants that are volunteering in places where no one's giving them water, no one's tending to them. Those are the ones that'll do well in your meadow, I would think.
Now, if you have something like a golden columbine, when we're hiking, we see it down by the creek. So it needs a little more moisture, like some shade. So there are certainly some things like that, but there are certainly many, many high and dry that can get you started and feeling good about your native plant landscaping skills. And then, many of us don't have a lot of shade. So there are certain things we don't, but in some cases, if you have a big rock, or you can have a big rock brought in, or a wall or something that makes shade so it doesn't get that hot sun all day long, well, that's kind of like a tree. Mm-hmm. And so you can plant some different things in, just little micro habitats, a lot of sun, not much sun, cooler, warmer.
Are there restrictions? Are there restrictions on getting plants on the side of the road and up in the wilderness?
Yes and no.
Okay.
As far as the wilderness, the Gila, native, national forest or state property, you need a collecting permit. And we have rare and endangered species that you don't find many of them around. And So you need to be very, very careful. So one of my tasks for this week is to get to the Forest Service or call them and see what is allowed. Probably not a lot, but certainly if you go to a state park, it's just forbidden. Unless you're a researcher, they take a couple plants to press and use for research, the answer will be no. So you have to be very, very careful. Along the state right of ways, let me look on that. People do it, not in the forest. But if you do have friends, and in perfect times, we would be meeting together face to face, and we'd be going over to Betsy's house and we'll be standing in her meadow. I mean, seriously. And that's a great way to learn. And Betsy said, well, here's some of these, this Linum lewisii, this beautiful flax. And she said, here, I'll dig some of these up and I'll put them in pots for you, like she did for me. So I'm not saying that she'll do that for everybody. She does have a life. But so that's a really good way
But
to.
seed, you can collect seeds, Dawn, can't you?
Yes, you bet.
Yeah.
Well,
There are lots of them.
if it's an endangered species or of special concern, no.
Gaillardia, you can collect
Yes.
Gaillardia seeds.
Collect.
That's right.
Well, one thing I found, the Fendler sun drops. I've had some success with those, mostly because I ride my bike on Ridge Road, and out near the detention center, there are a lot of those beautiful Fendler sun drops growing right on the side of the road. And in late summer, early fall, I gathered seeds and I brought them home and spread them out, and they are spreading beautifully. So I don't know if there are rules, like I think from the pavement, I got my seeds probably less than 2 feet from the pavement. I didn't look up to find out if that was legal or not, but that's Ridge Road, that's a county maintained road, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Ridge Road, if you're newer to Silver City, is where what we call the dump, but the landfill is off of Ridge Road.
It's close to
And
the
the golf
1.5
course.
million gallons of sewage that just spilled.
Yeah.
And they're doing major renovation now on the road, so they're probably going to dig up everything that's on the side of the road in the next several months.
So that will be a project of mine this week. I'll find out about National Forest Service permits. I'll find out about state lands. I'll find out about county and state rights of way. Okay, and get you some ideas. But one of the problems is that novices may dig something that is quite rare and not knowing it. It's quite beautiful. So, that's one of the things that we really, really have to stress, is that you should really know what you're looking at and what you're transplanting. And that's why you do a course like this. That's why you come on our wildflower and native plant hikes. And you learn these things. You learn what is around here and what is more common and what is not so common. And then you find friends once you're here. And you say, I see you've got a lot of agaves. And agaves, they reproduce by rhizomes. It's an asexual reproduction. So here's the parent plant, and then they, send these underground roots out and all stems out in all the directions. And a lot of people are just willing to let you come and dig some of those up. So give me a little time to pull that information together for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good, great questions. Other questions? We've got about 10 minutes. Yes.
I have tons of questions, but
Okay. Let's just hold on a second. Mary, is there anyone else who'd like to jump in with a question?
Who hasn't asked?
Who has not asked a question, just to give? Okay. Oh, yes, go ahead, Susan. Susan, yes. Unmute.
This goes way back to Betsy talking about Gaillardia. Do those spread by seed or do they, it seems like mine mostly spread out, but they're covered with seeds every year.
Yeah, as far as I can tell from mine, it's the seeds
Okay,
that are spreading.
so
Yeah,
it might be a good idea to take some handfuls of those seeds and spread them out where I'd like some more.
that's what I have done. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And Susan, if you look in that guide, the beginner's guide to planting herbaceous native perennials, whatever we called it, of the Gila region, Hannah Blood put that together. One of our former gems. She's still a gem, but she doesn't live here any longer. But one of the things that she talks about a little bit with some of those plants is how to propagate them. And in some cases, like the penstemons, she said, leave them there in the fall, dump their capsules, over so those seeds spread. So when your penstemon, your nice big penstemon, Elroy said last week, live 3 or 4 years. But then you'll start to replenish those. And the yarrow is a beautiful little plant. I'm not sure if the deer like that or not, but it's a beautiful little plant. And it grows by rhizome. So if you have a friend with a bunch of yarrow in their yard, you can just take a little piece of that underground stem and, just plant it. And so Hannah has a lot of little techniques, at least in those 26 species in the beginner's guide.
The other thing I've had luck with, and I hesitate to say it because it's probably not native, are California poppies. Are they native?
They're native.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, they're native.
Okay. Well, I really wanted some of those because I love the color. And I tried planting them here and I tried planting them there and didn't have much luck. And then I finally got a few plants established. And it's slow going, but they're gradually spreading out with that, they're popping out their seeds. So I'm happy with that propagating itself. And I wish they could do more, actually.
They're beautiful.
And
Yeah.
Susan, so that California poppy is a perennial.
Mhm.
We have another very, very common, probably more common than the California, like right in this general vicinity, is the New Mexico poppy, and that's an annual. So so you can get seeds, I think, on the list of native growers and vendors. It's in extras, and Tricia Hurley, I just found out from her that she has some of the seeds from that annual, and it's big, not big, but it's got that same beautiful orangey yellow, beautiful color as the California, and it does very, very well here. So you might be able to find some seeds. Incidentally, if some of you have penstemon seeds and some other seeds that you want to plant and you're hoping for this spring, plant them now before this storm comes. Plant them now, sow them and let that snow fall on them, and then the snow will melt and they'll have a nice bed for this spring. Okay, anyone else? And we'll go back to Mary. It's funny because on my screen, people's faces are shifting around. And I go, Mary used to be down at the bottom left. Now I see Lynn. It's like, where's Mary go? Anyone else? And then we'll go back to Mary. Okay, Mary.
I have 2 questions. One is I have a couple of mature junipers in the front yard, and they give great privacy except for the trunk part. And I was thinking of planting a vine underneath it. Would be very shady. And I was thinking about, I think it's Virgin's Bower that turns like bright red in the fall. I've never seen where that says they grow up juniper trees. They just say trees. So would something like that grow up a juniper tree to give a little bit more visual interest to the trunk?
You may need to put a little trellis up against your tree,
Okay,
or, you know,
but it wouldn't be too shady? Oh,
you certainly see clematis is the genus. I'll
okay,
give you a little Latin here, but clematis, and clematis.
yeah, right, yeah. Potato,
Right.
potato.
Yeah, so, yeah, you see it in the shade. So, give it a try. And once again, our growers like Trisha Hurley, people in Southwest Plants and Elroy, and I mean, just people ask those questions of us and other growers because they have just a whole host of experience.
I was going to ask Elroy about that because I'm not as familiar with the clematis here. And I was thinking that the vine that I see in the fall that turns bright red is the Parthenocissus.
Right.
And I'm curious, is there a clematis that turns red also, or?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm thinking about a clematis either. I think it's
Parthenocissus, yeah,
probably the one you said.
Virginia creeper is
Virginia
the
creeper,
common
yeah.
name.
Can't think
Okay,
of
maybe
anything
that's
around
okay.
here where it's growing in
Mary,
shade.
Mary, I did grow one of those in my yard under a shady tree,
Uh-huh.
Parthenocissus. And what I did, because sometimes it's awkward getting it to get up into the tree, so I just tied a rope on the branch of the tree and I pegged that rope down into the hole where the vine was planted. And it a jute rope that was kind of scratchy, and it climbed right up it.
Oh, okay.
But those vines, they get 30 feet long very fast. So hopefully you have a big juniper.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, good.
With mine here at home, it took about 4 years before it really took off. But then it just grew like crazy after that. But it just took a long time to really get established, or started at least putting on any top growth to speak of. But since then, it's grown like crazy.
There is a video in the plants section of the course, module 2, in vines, in the vines section. There's a video that shows poorly Elroy's Parthenocissus, so you can take a look at that there.
And Mary, if you look in Carter's Native Plants for Lawns and Gardens that we've talked about in extras, and in the back portion of that guide are the woody vines, and both Virgin Bower and Parthenocissus, or what he's calling Virginia creeper, are both in that guide.
Okay.
So you can take and read a little bit about that and what Jack Carter thought back in 1994 was a good place to put them.
Okay. And my other question was about a mesquite tree. I was thinking about a honey mesquite. Is that, but they're really thorny. Do people grow those? Or I know there's one in the botanical garden, but it just seemed like there would be kind of a neat, different kind of tree to have, especially with some agaves and cactus.
Sure.
Yeah.
mean, there's no problem with it. They grow around here, so they don't get to be big trees like they do in some other parts of the world, but they get to be a big shrub, I would say. We don't see any big ones around here, but they'll get 10, 15 feet tall, probably.
So Elroy, when they're flowering, what do the flowers look like? You recall? Are they yellowish?
I can't recall right offhand.
Aren't they long with multiple flowers on the long kind of
Yeah,
stem?
right. They're
Kind of cream color?
right. Yeah, they're cream colored. Yeah.
It's one of our common members of the bean family, the Fabaceae.
Yeah.
Susan?
What about winter jasmine? I just inherited a section along my fence of winter jasmine, and I've not taken care of it at all. And then suddenly it's blooming and it's lovely. I would like to take better care of it, but I don't know what to do to it.
Does anyone know winter jasmine? It doesn't sound like it might be. Sounds like it's probably not a native.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay. It has little tiny yellow flowers on it.
Right.
It almost looks like forsythia, but the flowers are spaced. So it's not as dense.
So that's one of the things that you folks all have to decide, you know, what kinds of things in your yard that are not native, and you know they're not native, but you like them,
And
you
you want
know,
to keep
and you
them.
want to keep them, well, then you should keep them. And, you know, so what kinds of things do you allow to stay, and what things are you say, well, it's a little aggressive and there are some other things. So you just have to make that call. No one, we don't, you know, the Gila Native Plant Society police will not come to your yard and say, that is not native. So you have to make that decision. And I think all of us have some non-native plants in our yard. Maybe it's a Siberian elm, you know, maybe it's vinca that came from 30 years ago or something like that. And we all make those decisions. So
I
don't
think
feel
the big thing is the not aggressive, because
Non-aggressive,
if it's aggressive, you're going to be really sorry you did it.
right.
Is buffalo vine an aggressive one? I've seen that out in the wilderness and I think it's really cool.
Are you thinking about that has the gourds like the?
Yes.
That is native. And
I think it looks very prehistoric to me.
But
It's-
be
it's-
careful because they spread.
Do they?
Yeah.
and if you get up close and smell, it kind of smells like armpit. So it's not necessarily something that people love and cherish, but it's one of our natives. And I agree. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool plant.
Mine got way too aggressive and it was going everywhere. And it took me 3 or 4 years to kill it. So it's not something that you have to give a lot of TLC to. Put some out and then try to kill it and it'll just keep growing probably the right amount.
Great advice.
Anything else? Okay, so it's 3 minutes after 2. Another good discussion today. So thank you very much. And don't forget, we're going to send you an email with an invitation for Zoom for our Michael Risey program on Friday. And you can find past presentations on our website under events and then programs. And we've got discussions up there for you, or make your own discussion, put some pictures in of your projects, your plants, what the heck is this, et cetera, et cetera.
I do have one more question. If
Go
possible.
ahead, Stacy.
It's a technical one. And is there a YouTube video or something that tells me how to navigate the Zoom platform? Because I see people putting messages up at the top of my screen. I have no idea how to do that. And there's just so many things that I don't understand about this learning platform.
The Zoom specifically, though.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking about, though?
Well, that's what I'm doing right now. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you move your cursor or your mouse, one of the things you see, chat. On our computer, it's at the bottom. It says chat. You see that?
I'm on an iPad, so.
Okay,
So
we'll move your.
it can be almost anywhere on your screen.
I found it.
Okay, so if you would just click chat, it gives you a little box, and then just type, say, hey, I'm having trouble with my chat.
Okay.
And then we'll see that. Amy said, I have to leave. Thank you, everyone. So anyway, that's what those are.
Okay. I just feel that there's so much that I don't know to do, and I'm not sure how to find out how to do that. I don't have a 15-year-old around.
Right, but you know what? You're doing the best thing you could possibly do. You're on Zoom,
You're trying it.
asking questions. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We were exactly where you are now a year ago.
Okay, good. Help for me.
Keep Zooming.
I
I
will.
think you know more than you think you do,
Mhm.
because I'm able to see you. So that means you know how to turn on the video,
Mhm.
and I can hear you. So that means you know how to unmute yourself. So
Positives.
Those
Thank
are
you.
the two most important things, aren't they?
So,
Right.
okay, Stacy, here's your assignment for next week. I want you to
Uh-huh.
find a photograph, or maybe take a photograph of your yard or something you want, okay, and get that ready.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna have you screen share that next week. And hey, well, look,
Okay.
move your little mouse again, right next to chat. It says screen, share screen. You just hit that and it'll kind of lead you through it. So anyway,
Okay.
we'll see. So, and if you want
Okay.
to,
I tried.
if you want to practice, then you email us sometime between now and then, and we'll do a
with you.
practice Zoom with you, and you can screen share.
Thank you. Yes.
That offer goes to any of you.
Yes,
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
you're very welcome.
All right, I thought it was a great session again.
So
Okay,
have a great week.
Bye.
Hope for
Thank
lots of
you.
sno and rain.
yeah.
Yeah, lots of
Rain
snow and
and
rain.
snow. Well, a mix, yeah, okay, bye.
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 Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it possible to volunteer? That's so creepy. That was Mary Barrett. Okay.